By the way, I found the other book now.
Which one?
The Codex.
Ah, uh-huh.
It's only 80 pages.
Oh, really? God damn it. I read this whole fucking book yesterday.
I see that you also, some chapters are also like fictional.
Yeah, I know. It would have been really fun. Yeah. I'm glad we did this one, though. This is some, this is deep cut.
Yes.
Deep cut. We can always, I'll be happy to go back on the other one later someday. Why are we talking about him, though?
He was jailed. He was jailed in February.
Well, we're talking about him because that's what we do. It's our job.
It is.
All right. Okay.
I mean, he's like a British guy connected to Temple of Blood, ONA, National Action. I mean, that's
what we do. Yeah. He's one of the freaks. All right. Well, let me start this over. So this is The Empire Never Ended. We got Boris and Fritz and Ray here to talk about more more of the more garbage people. Just the worst of the worst today.
Yeah, definitely, and even some 09A people would think that as well, or they claim to at least.
Yeah, we're talking about the lowest brow of the 09A today.
Yes.
Well, a lot of them really defend him, and not only ONA, but also like Nazis and National Action people.
So if you haven't guessed...
So who are we talking about today?
If you haven't guessed from those hints, we're talking about Ryan Fleming today.
Jerry.
So we mentioned Ryan Fleming before when we talked about these siege peel groups.
Right.
But let's talk a bit more about him. So he's a British guy. I think now he's around 30 years old, maybe exactly 30 years old. He's from Horford, Leeds.
Right. Yeah.
And he's one of the National Action people. In fact, he was one of the leaders of this group. Otherwise also known as System Resistance Network. So National Action was founded in 2013. And it was proscribed under the Terror Act in Britain in 2016.
Did you mention they also called themselves Triple K Mafia at some point?
So after they were banned as a terrorist organization, they started using a bunch of other names. I mean, they still exist. So one of them is the one you mentioned, Triple K Mafia.
Absurd. Is that a reference to like 3-6 Mafia, presumably?
It's like, 3-6 Mafia and KKK put together.
They also,
lovely.
One of their branches started calling themselves Scottish Dawn. Also, they use the name NS131, which stands for National Socialist Anti-Capitalist Action, which is also the name used by some of these siege peel groups in the U.S. now. Mm-hmm. I think some of the people who stormed the Capitol were also a part of like an American branch of, a siege peel group that uses the same name as these people in Britain. The group, as I said, was founded in 2013. It was like closely affiliated with the Iron March internet forum that we also discussed briefly.
Yep.
So it's one of these kind of new style, openly very like pro-terrorist violence groups that we talked about before, very influenced by James Mason and similar assholes. So it was, I think it was actually the first neo-Nazi group that was banned as a terrorist group in Britain. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it was, connected to many violent things and also like to violent plots that didn't came true. One of them was a plot to murder a member of parliament by, I think, a National Action leader called Renshaw, I think, who's also a convicted pedophile. Somewhere I think we read how the plot was to kill this MP by using a machete, but I read somewhere that actually he purchased a Gladius sword to do it.
All right.
So, which is very interesting.
Yeah, an interesting choice.
Yeah, well, shout out to Angleton there.
Yeah. So they also, like the American groups, had cops and soldiers as members. Actually, this year, in April, one cop, Benjamin Hannem, was convicted of being a member of National Action. Because now it's illegal even to be a member of it because it's a banned terrorist organization.
Yeah, the UK ain't fucking around with that suddenly. I mean, like, back in the day, you could nail bomb multiple streets and
the cops
still not be called a terrorist organization.
Probably maybe not a Nazi, but I had some Nazi things.
They just outlawed Atomwaffen and National Socialist Order, their sequel organization.
Yep.
They're going for them.
Yeah. So Ryan Fleming was one of the main organizers of this organization. He used to talk at like public events. I think was in charge of security and things like this.
A lot of these like luminaries, numinaries, I guess, have been have had this role, haven't they? I mean, even Mason was like running security and shit. And,
Myatt as well.
Yeah, true.
Well, yeah, but Myatt, supposedly knew the ancient martial arts.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, but like, if being a Nazi scumbag is not enough, Ryan Fleming is a scumbag in a few other ways as well. So he has this history of being arrested and imprisoned because of, like, child molestation and similar things.
The usual Nazi reason to go to prison.
So I think this happened 3 times already to him. In 2012, he was convicted for falsely imprisoning and sexually abusing a boy who's, like, also, I think, mentally disabled. I think he was a young boy, like 12, 13. I'm not sure exactly what the age was. It was Ryan Fleming and 2 other men who stripped the boy of his clothes, shaved his head, and, like, Ryan Fleming admitted in the court that they made the boy do perform a sexual act on them, and then they walked him home while still beating him. And he got 22 months of prison for that. This was in 2012. And in 2017, he got, I think, a 3-year prison sentence for sexually abusing a 14-year-old girl. So what he did was he contacted her and, like, groomed her through the internet and lied her about his age. And then he had sex with her, I think, twice. And then she dumped him after he admitted that he's older than he said initially. So yeah, he went to prison because of this. In the court, the judge said how Ryan Fleming was arrogant and boastful, which is kind of like this guy seems like all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll get to his writings at the end of the episode.
Yeah, so he got this prison sentence, I think, of 3 years in 2017. So I guess he was, like, let go relatively, like, recently. But this year he also, like, again, he did a similar thing. I mean, he was convicted this year. I'm not sure what the sentence is, but he was convicted because in December of 2020, he used Instagram and other applications on the internet to anonymously message young teenagers and kids, and joined some groups, like chat groups with kids and teenagers. And he's explicitly banned of, like, contacting anyone below the age of 16. And he just couldn't help himself, like, straight away when he went out of prison, he started doing this thing again. Interestingly enough, his national action bodies defended him through this whole ordeal, like starting from the 2012. Even, like, one of these leaders, like the Benjamin, what's the name?
Benjamin Raymond.
Benjamin Raymond. He said that, like, what Ryan Fleming did in 2012 was heroic, and they completely stand by him.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so Ryan Fleming also, like, he liked to quote Ian Brady, the Moors murderer, the British guy. I think this happened in the 60s. These murders. So I mean, this is also a pedophile who also murdered children, like small children, but he thinks of himself as a kind of intellectual and publishes books, I guess, and has fans, and Ryan Fleming is one of them.
Yeah, of course.
And so That's the other way that this guy is a scumbag. But there is also, of course, as we are used to at the Empire Never Ended podcast, there is a third dimension to this, and that is that he is a Satanist affiliated with the Order of Nine Angles.
Yeah. Well, and more than just a Satanist, too. I mean, he's the founder of an entire branch of the Order of Nine Angles.
One of the founders. Yeah. I mean, recently there was an interview published by the journalist Jake Hanrahan. I hope I pronounced that. So Jake interviewed one of the Order of Nine Angles members. For us, it was interesting, of course, especially because the subject of the interview later he apparently heard our podcast, and basically we got a first death threat from the Order of Nine Angles.
Yeah.
He said that we are self-tested offers.
Yes.
Which I guess means he wants to call us.
I wanted to make that our catchphrase, but
that would be good. Yeah, we would sign off on that.
Empire Never Ended, self-tested offers.
Your favorite self-tested offers.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like the usual, kind of mild style of... he basically denied that they're even Nazis or Satanists or anything.
Right.
But in this typical kind of well, you don't understand anything kind of...
Yeah. But
because Jake was like, well, what about this big picture of Adolf Hitler on the front page of your website?
Yes, but Hitler is... but our philosophy is from Savitri Devi. And he's like, oh yeah, she's a Nazi too. Yes, she's Nazi, but...
You're too stupid to understand. But one of the things that he said was that there is a kind of a division in Order of Nine Angles between groups such as his, which he called more progressive, and he would count in the group of Chloe Ortega in the US there, and maybe a few other. And then there are the more hardcore ones, like the Temple of Blood, for example. So, I'm not even sure that this is true, that there is some kind of a division there, because they did things together, like publications and so on.
Yes.
But if there is, let's say that Ryan Fleming is more connected to this even more extreme version of Nazi Satanist pedophilia than the other ones are. The progressive Nazi Satanists.
The progressive ones very much reject any link to pedophilia, and they get very upset that people keep lumping them in with these pedophiles. You see it over and over again in any of kind of threads in which they're talking amongst themselves.
But the problem is that they edited pro-pedophile publications themselves.
Yes.
Exactly.
Also together with the Temple of Blood.
Yes.
So,
it will almost certainly continue to do so.
Yes.
Yeah. There are editions of Fenrir, the official journal of the Order of Nine Angles, that have texts by this ABG group of the guy who was interviewed, who also have pro-pedophile texts in them, and texts by the Temple of Blood.
Yeah.
So
disgusting texts. Yeah. But very them.
So, but it seems there was some kind of a conflict, because there is an issue of Fenrir from the year 124 year of Fen. I'm not sure what year that is. I didn't.
Taking out the calculator.
I thought we agreed to always do these calculations before recording.
I think this was maybe 2014 or something.
What was it? 124?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, 1887 or 1889?
It's 2013, I think. But I'm always wrong about this.
No. But Hitler's birth date, what?
1889.
1889. I said 1889.
Yeah. Because you want it to be 88, you know?
Yeah.
But just like every fascist, it disappoints you in the end.
Yeah. So that's 2013. Yeah.
Okay, 2013. So there's a text there how, in September 2013, Order of Nine Angles, I don't know what they do, but they got a new... I don't know how actually what's the procedure, but a new person became the the outer representative of the Order of Nine Angles, which is like basically a kind of a leader.
Yeah.
No, they don't have leaders.
It's a
They don't have leaders.
spokesperson.
We don't have
right.
leaders. You don't
Spokesperson,
understand. You obviously don't understand the complexities.
This is what Christos Beast or Richard Moult was previously. But in September 2003, the outer representative became a person calling themselves Jal, which is in some sources say that this is like an American woman. So I don't know, maybe this is Chloe Ortega. Maybe not, I don't know. But apparently Ryan Fleming was very upset for some reason because of this change. And so it's interesting because like in Fenrir there is like a huge picture of Ryan Fleming and they use his real name to like diss him. And they write how Ryan Fleming like alternatively said how he will hunt down this Jao, also presenting himself as being Jao, and said that how he will offer Jao, basically kill her.
Or himself, I guess.
Yeah. ONA also writes how Ryan Fleming challenged a member of the inner ONA to a duel and then canceled it after this person actually said yes. This is, and they also call the ONA in Fenrir they call Ryan Fleming and his group of associates as the lowest brow of the ONA fringe. So they don't deny that these people are ONA. They just say that they are like...
They're not as cool and smart as we are.
Yeah.
Well, they're not as classy. These guys are, they're kind of ruffians.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, they also write how one of the associates of Ryan Fleming is a person who did kind of a similar thing to the previous outer representative of ONA. So... had some beef with that person, which is, I don't know if that's Richard Moult or someone had a problem with these guys already before. Ryan Fleming is actually, he has his own Nexion of the Order of Nine Angles, which is called the Drakon Covenant, and is based in Yorkshire. And he, we know, like, we can see that he has a close connection with the Temple of Blood in the US. I mean, we did a whole 2 episodes on them. You should go and listen to that. Quite disgusting people, Joshua Sutter and Gillian Hoy, who have their own publishing operation called Martinet Press. And they published at least 2 books by Richard Fleming, I think, under the name of A.A. Moraine. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah,
Moraine?
yeah.
Moraine? I don't know.
Moraine.
Yeah.
It's, what's the name? It's, sorry. I forget his first name. Hold on.
Ryan Fleming.
No.
Joshua Sutter.
No.
The first fake name.
The first A.
First name out of the fake name.
It's something Alexander Aristarchus Moraine. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So I think first book that of Ryan Fleming that they published was called Codex Aristarchus, let's say.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to read how they announced it. And that will be it from me, I think, for now. So this is what Martinet Press or Temple of Blood wrote about the book by Ryan Fleming. From the blood-stained moors of West Yorkshire, England, comes a genuinely amoral vampiric praxis melding the black arts of predatory astral vampirism with a harsh ordeal-based approach of the sinister sevenfold way. In Codex Aristarchus, A.A. Moraine presents the definitive collective works of the Drakon Covenant, including vampiric theory, rites and methods by which the reader themselves can step upon the black path of the vampiri. So and they write vampiri in an extremely stupid way.
They always do.
Which doesn't make any sense because the word vampire comes from the Balkans. This is not how you write it. Like if you want to use some old
WH or something? How does it start?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
There's no...
Yeah.
Get the fuck out
it's
of
like,
here.
Can you say the spelling? I have it here somewhere, but I don't see it now.
Wamphyri.
Yes.
Oh, come on.
Vamphyr. Yeah.
Yeah. Can step on the black path of the vampire, feeding upon the human herd and taking the treacherous road to confrontation with the black ascended masters, the undead. Unlike the many books penned by armchair occultists presently flooding the market, Codex Aristarchus bears the distinction of authorship by one actually treading evil ground with documented criminal and ultra-right political bona fides.
I mean, true.
With a forward by Tsar Azak Kala from Temple of Blood.
High praise.
Yeah.
High praise.
Yeah, that is high praise.
Yeah. So yeah, arrogant and boastful of what? I mean, torturing like a kid who like is mentally disabled with your two buddies and
Yes.
Man, this guy's so
that's
cool,
exactly what
man.
they mean.
He sexually assaulted a child, and that's real
But look,
dark. and evil.
listeners, like that's what it means to be like the the real deal for these people. Like that's exactly what it fucking means.
Yeah, that's genuine sinister ground.
There was some fucking like Redditor that was trying to defend Fleming on some message board about him being arrested again for being a pedophile. To which the first comment is, "Oh look, a Nazi pedophile," which is I'm glad to see because that it's known, people know.
It is a recurring theme.
But somebody writes, "Oh, he's not a pedo. If he was a pedo, he would be chasing 3-year-olds." So they get very mad when you call him a pedo. Like they comment on your YouTube and stuff about how he's not a pedo. But like, I guess this is what they mean, that he doesn't chase 3-year-olds. So anybody over 3 years old is, I guess, fair game for the ONA. Just so you know.
Although on Iron March, they would kind of Slavros made fun of him and accused him of making his girlfriend up that he constantly talked about. Like he would post things and then be like, "Yeah, my waifu girlfriend said this and that," and then Slavros eventually, I think, accused him of just making up that girlfriend. That was completely false, which is very possible.
Well, there's some, there's some like people around Leeds were following him. They call them Nazi Ryan, and you see some comments here and there from neighbors of his that did say he had like this girlfriend, but she's even featured with him in a photograph in some like college admissions presentation or something.
So she was not a child, in other words.
Well, she was, I think at the time of this picture that I saw, she was 18 and he was 22, something like this. So at least at that moment, she wasn't a child, no.
Yeah, I think he was like 25 or so when he joined Iron March. So this is a little bit later, but
okay. Who knows? Honestly, who cares?
Yeah,
who cares?
I mean, I went through his posting history on Iron March, and I mean, he posted a lot. I mean, he joined up in kind of early 2015, but honestly, not too interesting, except for kind of this conflict with Slavros.
Yeah.
Because if you haven't listened to our Slavros episode, it's a premium one. So
it is premium. It is. That's a premium episode.
Premium content.
That's right.
Slavros, you'll know then that Slavros published his own kind of esoteric ideas on Iron March, to which Ryan Fleming was basically just like, "Oh, this is just O9A shit," just pretty much ripping off the O9A. To which Slavros got very offended, because as we know, Slavros does not like the O9A at all. And they had kind of a back and forth about that, and later he would continue to kind of like joke, provoke Slavros from time to time. But that's just Iron March shit for you.
That's just Iron March. It's just the thin-skinned internet. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure if he was joking here or if this is actually a title. So in this one post where he says, "I don't need to argue for it. I was simply, in my original comment, amused at how everything Slavros wrote about esotericism has remarkable parallels with the O9A, which he discredits. If there are points which are vague and you'd like me to clarify, tell me which points they are. I am, after all, a level 34 magus in the sinister black order of the acausal crystal of purple vector graphics," which is then also referring to his meme lord status, because I guess he was making memes a lot during this time period, and was like kind of into that kind of Nazi vaporwave aesthetic bullshit, and made a lot of that.
He's got that look to him, actually, now that you mention it.
Yeah. Which he also like claims to have written an essay about memes from an O9A perspective called "Memeplexes as Viral Units," which he claims received popular credit in some circles. I haven't been able to find it. I looked around a little bit for it.
Hey, if anybody has it,
send it our way, because I'm kind of curious. I'm kind of curious whether this is actually something that he did write or not. It's very possible that he just made this shit up too.
Tell you what, as a reward for finding us this essay, we'll do something comparing it to Baked Alaska's meme magic essays.
Yeah. Also, if anybody has like some, because he claims that that there was an O9A meme page on Facebook called Numinous Nexium memes. Which I can no longer find. So if somebody has access to those, would like to make fun of them.
Absolutely, yes, please.
Well, another kind of interesting point in his posting history actually comes from a private message exchange he had with a guy named Babbles, who is interested in O9A stuff and contacted him. And here he pretends to not be the Drakon Collective.
Wait, what year is this though?
2015, October.
Because
2015.
It's unclear to me when Drakon Covenant actually started. I want to, because I think the first book came out in 2016.
Well, because he says here there is a UK affiliated group called the Drakon Covenant. They follow the O9A and vampirism like TOB do. So yeah,
affiliated with the Temple of Blood.
Yeah, exactly. So in this,
maybe it was then.
This guy who contacted him, he first says that he's interested in the O9A, but then starts asking some questions about the Temple of Blood, and is it affiliated with the O9A Weltschauung? Is that how you pronounce it? I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't fucking speak German.
That's a different show.
That's a different show. Yes.
You're confused.
I am clearly confused. But yeah, he says yes. Temple of Blood exists, and he calls them a rather reclusive U.S. group, and then suggests the Drakon Covenant for the UK. And then says, if you decide to email them, he provides an email and says, use the word Nekala. It's a sort of password.
That is legit ONA, though.
Yes, that's totally kind of.
Yeah, he gives a guy his email and says, if you email them, use a password, and he's the password.
Yes, so, yeah. He gives the email for the Drakon Covenant, which is clearly probably the only guy reading that email. And then tells him to use a fucking password. Get the fuck out of here. But yeah, I don't actually know whether this guy ended up contacting Temple of Blood or not. I assume he did because he's in the U.S. And clearly Ryan Fleming also had this connection to the Blood. Because, I mean, he states it. He says that they follow the O9A and vampirism like TOB.
Yeah. Drakon Covenant is very Temple of Blood. With a fun edition of werewolves, though. We'll talk about
that's what I wanted to say. Yeah. It's not only vampires, it's werewolves as well.
Yeah. Oh, actually, there's a whole bestiary involved. It's a lot more fun, really, than Temple of Blood, as far as RPG LARPing goes. Yeah.
I was never into werewolves. I kind of thought it was stupid.
Yeah. Lycanthropy.
Yeah. I never liked the werewolf episodes of the X-Files or whatever. The vampire ones I did. But, other than that, it's just Iron March bullshit. It's just lots of... he talks about triggering leftist and Antifa people.
We get so triggered when you sexually assault minors.
Yes.
Oh, we're so fucking sensitive.
He's kind of proud of being a troll as well, and he self-identifies as such because he likes trolling. So he said, "I've been trolling Antifa about it, and they're triggered to the max." Triggered in all caps.
Triggered to the max.
Yeah,
great, cool dude.
Yeah, so great guy. But also not super popular on Iron March either. He's also, I'd like to correct, he is British, I think, by birth, but is Irish and very proud of this. And he talks about learning Gaelic and speaking Gaelic and having a sense of identity with his Celtic heritage. Although later in another post he claims that Irish aren't actually Celts, that they're Gauls. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, this book we're going to talk about in a minute is kind of full of that. So he's authored
how many books that we know of? Right? He has,
I think 4.
4?
Is that right? I'm not totally sure on that. He's like...
I think on the Martinet Press blog, I think I only saw 2, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I think Drakon Covenant has 4, but I don't know. Look, I guess the point is that they have more than 1, which is already way too many, I would say.
Well, 1 is too many.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, yeah,
pretty prolific for being the lowest brow of the
yeah. Well, okay, let's maybe.
I mean, I guess all
his...
these assholes are though. They like writing.
Yeah. There's let's open up his writing, huh?
Yeah.
Let's open this book, this tome. So we didn't read the codex, although that is like the foundational text of the Drakon
Yeah, I
Covenant.
mean, maybe I can just mention like some of the titles of the chapters in that book.
Oh yeah,
if
go
you
ahead.
want
Go
to read.
ahead. Actually, that'll be a little helpful.
I mean, it can tell you what this is about. I mean, it's, for example, the vampiric aims of the Drakon Covenant, the rite of a vampiric initiation, discipline and terror, the mark of a true predator, the revolution and terror, and such things. So, yeah, it's very, like,
Also a bunch
heavy.
of fiction, bunch of fash fic, too. There's like a whole
Yeah.
section of short stories there.
Insight roles, a sinister necessity, acausal and astral vampirism, the necessary difference, and so on. So, I mean, it's very much heavy on the predator thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Is the mark
So-
of a true predator like messaging children online or?
That is the
using
mark of a
Instagram.
predator. That does, yeah, that does let you
That
know.
is a true predator. Yeah.
Scithain is the book that I did end up reading. Is sort of like, I guess it's like a sequel.
So is it are we supposed to like read it as Scithain or not?
No, it's not Scithain. It's got nothing to do with Scythians. At no
But it's not
point.
how you pronounce it.
I'm just saying it's Scithain.
Okay.
Scithain.
So it's not actually So it's not related to the Scythians.
No, it's some Gaelic shit.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, I'll tell you what it means in a second. So Scithain is like a. You know, I'm laughing because I'm trying to picture Ryan's face listening to me say this. Just like, oh no.
Scithain.
Yeah. So Ryan wrote a book called Scithain, which is an elaboration of the Drakon Covenant's, like, well, I guess prehistory, but also rituals and some more, I guess, like more of a practical guide, we'll say, to I think the basis of what was laid out in the Codex, right? Mm-hmm. So this is like more lore. This is an expansion of the lore, and guys, if any of you out there are big Skyrim fans like I am, or maybe you like the show Adventure Time, or are any kind of nerd on that spectrum, this book is for you. This is your entry point to fascism. Just letting you know. Yeah. So this is there's like a bestiary in here. There's all sorts of like great, completely made up nonsense about prehistory, but it's real fun. It's a real fun one. So maybe I'll give a couple clips from the forward just to set it up.
Okay.
So this book. He warns us from West Yorkshire. Okay, so probably, by the way, while he's in prison, while he's in jail, I think I get the sense, unless he started this like right before he went in, because he went in summer of 2017, and this came out in September of 2017, and it's not a short book. It's like 250 pages, you know.
Well, I guess he had a lot of time to write in there, yeah?
He might have, yeah. So either he really like just focused on that in jail, or he was working on it a little bit before. I don't know. But he writes, this book is not written for those who simply wish to possess another dangerous and demonic grimoire, thrilling with delight at the infamy that perhaps surrounds its authors or its contents. It is written for the few, perhaps only a small handful per century, who can recognize its merit above the plebeian outpour presently polluting the so-called left-hand path community, who can see it not simply another tired and pleonastic vanity project replete with hollow invocations and fabricated sigils recycling the same archaic dead ends of occult titillations. So Yeah. So I just wanted to point out that he writes this, and his publishers are fine with this, that this book's only written for a handful of people every century. It is out of print on Amazon. So.
I mean, basically, ONA people are only saying this one thing in many, many different ways all the time.
Yeah.
We are super special. We are the elite. The plebeians are dumb.
Exactly.
Nobody understands.
Although I love that he says that anybody who's reading this, will know that it's not full of hollow invocations and like fabricated sigils and blah, 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 occult titillation. But that's the whole point.
Whole thing,
the whole point literally is that, like it's some fake ass bullshit he pulled out of his ass in like 2 years time, and made his own like ONA, more than a Nexian. It's like he argues it is an entire tradition that, by the way, predates the ONA.
Oh, okay.
So he's
it's
really
older than 6,000
here.
years.
Yeah. Well, this will be explained why with the name of the book, Scithain. So the Scithain are a group of people that Ryan just fucking made up, who were supposedly the ancient inhabitants of the outer, I think it's Hebrides, so Hebridean islands of Britain. So these are like just west of Scotland, it passed down for some time within the inner circle of the Drakon Covenant on a purely oral basis. Now, Myatt also uses this idea of oral history as opposed to oral history, which is the history, spoken and transmitted through speech. Oral history is completely meaningless. There's oral is sound, so what?
Yeah.
I don't.
They just making special names for it.
Yeah, they just like making special names
words
for
that make them sound smart.
Yeah.
Unique.
Yeah.
But they're not even good at it. I will admit I'm like a Tolkien fan. I've been that all my life, and he invented languages, and he was very good at that.
Yes.
And but these words that these people use sound all like stupid. Like they're clearly invented, like invented by a child or something.
Yeah. So, all right. Okay, so basically, the Scithain people are the ancient priests. Well, we'll say at least Neolithic peoples that inhabited these islands. And the fact is that there is a really cool archaeological history to this area. Mm-hmm. There are quite ancient settlements, Neolithic, going way back with all sorts of cool mysteries of a long dead culture there. But all right, so that stuff just sets up, it triggers all the little what am I trying to say? I'm trying to find the word for it titillates the O9A sensibility,
Yes.
So all right, so let me write what he writes about these islands, and I'll say what he writes about these islands, and then I'll say what is true about these islands. All right.
Okay.
So what he writes is this: what was discovered through these communal rites was a very real locale, which is funny that he says that because it kind of implies that the rest of the shit he's talking about is made up. The very real locale of Ben Scithain, located on the it actually does come from this, located on the outer Hebridean island of Eriskay, rather. What was of interest was the translation of the place name, the hill or peak of the bat, or the peak of the winged, a symbol regarded as an inherent totem within traditions of vampiric magic of all stripes, and especially those of the Drakon Covenant. So there's a couple of these islands. One of them's got this hill that's it's kind of a dead island. The hill looks pretty dark, actually. It does look a little bit sinister, sort of. Mm-hmm. But generally, it's described in this way. Mm-hmm. This is from Wikipedia. Described as an apparently uninspiring lump, it nevertheless commands fine views of all these different islands, and in the months of May and November, Banescreen is the home to the island's sheep and the Eriskay ponies, which are these adorable ponies that trot around on the island, just living a lovely little easy pony life. And this is where Ryan's this is the heart of evil. Yes. But all right, grass is always darker on the other side, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes.
So all right, so one of the things that he also likes is this Clod Holland settlement, which is also legitimately cool on southeast. I don't know, I'm sorry to all those Gaelic people out there listening to me say all these words, but just remember it's hurting Ryan too. So they found these like super ancient mummies there, really cool, buried under houses, mummified by bogs. It's part of this whole like bog mummy cultural tradition that goes way the fuck back. It's super cool, and so Ryan understands this as that there was an island that focused on human sacrifice and eating the flesh of the inhabitants there.
Right, clearly.
Right, yeah. So they're like human sacrifice does kind of play a role in this area, but in the Iron Age, cannibalism, no real evidence of this. The only thing that I found that suggested that this island maybe did do some kinds of sacrifice was basically this like completely what do you call a guy that like has no credentials? Uncredentialed?
Yeah.
Incredible. That's the word. This incredible guy who's on like some public access British internet TV that like went there and like made a historical presentation about it and many other things on the internet, where he says this was clearly an act of ritual sacrifice and cannibalism. And I'm pretty sure that's the only thing Ryan must have seen to get this, because literally everybody else says, there's no evidence of this whatsoever.
And presumably there's a lot of scholarship on this. I mean, it's
and also we're talking about a period of time. It is well investigated, but we're talking about a period of time that isn't well understood. That there's more holes than there are, fillers. So it's a really nice place for people like this. And I'm talking about ancient alien people. I'm talking about all these motherfuckers to find these areas where there's lots of empty space and fill it in with this garbage. And so Ryan in this book continually uses the phrase like, it is said, it is theorized, people think, it is believed. All of this is shit he's making up on the spot in jail for being a pedophile.
Okay.
Right? All right. So the Drakon Covenant they're the keepers of this Neolithic knowledge of this predatory vampirism that he thinks was happening on Clot Holland, mixed with this sort of like authentic witchcraft of the uninspiring hill, and that these traditions that were then sort of transmitted to like Celtic invaders, etc., end up being protected here through the oral tradition that now Ryan, as A.A. Moraine, as Alexander Aristarchus Moraine, is the now like the Chuvar, what's that? Keeper of. Yeah. Right. So all right, so basically that's how it starts. Now keep in mind, all of this is making claims that are older than David Myatt made for the ONA by about 2,000 years. Okay. So he's going for the gullet here. Later on, you'll also see like criticisms that Myatt, or rather Long, never taught us exactly how to presence Vindex, how to bring Vindex into being, which is a really big deal because Vindex is the coming of the new Aeon,
right?
The Homo Galacticus and all that shit.
Yes.
But Ryan's like, he never told us how to do it, but Ryan knows how to do it, so he like puts it in this book. He even makes it into like fiction form, like a little fashfic little bit, to tell us how to do it. But there's a few other things. Like he's always like making a little dig at Long. The whole thing is basically about the union of the Drakon Covenant and the O9A traditions. But it's in this very like the ONA got it right. We know that because the Drakon Covenant is way the fuck older. That's kind of that's sort of the vibe here. So he's a real little bee, Yeah, I can see why Myatt fucking hates him if he does. Like, this guy is really all up on his business. He's trying to be more Myatt than Myatt, I think.
Yeah,
and he brings in like Myatt actually does as well in I want to say the National Socialism writings he did. He does bring in a lot of shitty archaeology as well. So. Okay, so basically, this book that we're reading, Scithain, is based, he says, primarily but not solely on the historical and chthonic research of the Aboriginal people of this island 10.5 thousand years ago.
Okay.
So Well, actually, that's quite a bit more than the O9A, then, isn't it? O9A is supposed to be 6,000 years, so this is 4,000 years, and then some, and some change.
Yeah,
yeah. So
take that, O9A.
So in real life, right, these Aboriginal people that he's talking about were probably, like deer hunters that were able to like modify their environment to make better grazelands and stuff like that. Normal fucking people. Right? Like Ryan thinks they were vampires. So and also he says that like basically nothing after 2500 BCE is like authentic anymore. It's at that point it's already sort of started to be corrupted by invading cultures, blah 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 blah. So all of his stuff focuses on all of the pre 2500 BCE stuff, all of his research. And he says that none of this, no information has been added that has not come via some form of extra-normal inspiration or diligent research. So since there's literally no information about this stuff, everything, I guess, came from extra-normal inspiration. And what did this inspiration tell him? That these Hebrides islands is Hyperborea. And a lot of listeners might have a stronger background here than others in the Hyperborean myth. There's a pretty good YouTube essay about it by Huntress X Thompson, if you want to look that up. Pretty good. I recommend it. But I guess in short, Hyperborea comes from mostly Greek mythology and let's say history about a land far to the north where like the sun never set. Apollo lived there. It was, this myth went through a lot of different cultural filters. Like some say that there were like giants who lived there, or there was a super advanced civilization that seeded all the other civilizations. And some people like now, like idiots today, say that it was Atlantis, and it goes on and on and on and on. It's a big part of a lot of nationalist mythology in Russia and Norway and Sweden and stuff like this, who all call, by the way, the Hebrides, the southern islands, right? The Hyperborea is supposed to be the northernmost point in this mythological worldview. And Ryan's saying that it's here, but of course all the people north of there who use Hyperborea as their like nationalist mythology call what he's calling Hyperborea the South, right? Whatever. Again, none of it matters because it's all made up. So his argument, and also Myatt's argument, is that this Hyperborean connection is what gives birth to Albion, the original Britain, basically. And Albion is supposed to be this advanced civilization of its time, but Ryan and Myatt believe that all this advancement came from these prehistoric vampires.
Yes, because that's
more or less.
That's clearly how things work.
Yes, right, yeah. So on the word Scithain, he says that Scithain is believed to be derived from the language of peoples who dwelt on the Hebrides during pre-Celtic times and may refer to a power or potency associated with the dark gods. It is believed that this name means dark gods. Why not? Huh? Where's the evidence?
Sure. Yeah.
Where's the evidence? They love evidence. Yeah. He also says that it is believed that the Hebridean people were Chthonic, that is like underworld focus, center of spirituality, and quote, perhaps gave rise to Stonehenge later on. Like, why not?
Always got to connect Stonehenge.
Fucking throw that in there. Yeah. I'll do you one better. They also end up linking into Arthurian legend. King Aurthur and the story of the Holy Grail are in fact a story of these ancient vampiric peoples who Arthur represents the Western Aeon. This comes also from Myatt. But just while we're on Arthur, by the way, I don't want to make a small point out of this. Arthur is very important to Fleming, very important to Myatt. I think the whole British ONA really likes these Arthurian legends, and they've taken them on as their own. And they consider that the overt Christian elements of the Arthurian legends are, of course, guess who?
The Vindex?
Well, no,
Satan?
I'm looking for Jewish corruption. I'm looking for Jewish corruption.
I see.
Magian influence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jews always pushing Christianity everywhere.
That's right. But that's key to also Maya's National Socialism stuff. Yeah.
And does he explain how Arthurian legends are vampiric?
No,
way?
but he does explain how Arthurian legends come from Leeds and not from Shropshire, which Myatt says.
A little local patriotism there too.
Yes. Yeah. So not only is he's taken everything away from Myatt, like it's great, like one after the other. He's like, oh, we're 4,000 years older than them. Arthur's from my town, not your town. Like, what is this? It's just nagging. But okay, the Arthurian legend, the way it connects to vampires is about the Grail, the chalice, which they call the blood chalice, and that somehow I'll get to it maybe in a bit as I'm scrolling,
okay,
but yeah.
Okay, now I can see, because all of those Holy Blood, Holy Grail from the 90s theories about the Merovingian dynasty surviving.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also about the Grail and how it represents a certain bloodline. So I can see how this could be.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, of course, it has a completely different meaning to it, but okay, I guess blood is there. So
yeah. So the vampiric tradition here, spelled in like we'll say a compromised way. So they didn't go full vampire. It is vampyric. And when he introduces the spelling, he says vampiric tradition, and then which he spells like a normal person would spell it. But then in parentheses, he says spelled here vampiric with a Y for the sake of simplicity. So he gives us the original spelling and then makes a new spelling for the sake of simplicity, which he continues to use throughout.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So it was Drakon Covenant is based in the Sevenfold Way, which he says comes from the Comlad runing, which is the Runewitha, right? So according to its adherents, he says this way was passed down by reclusive adepts on a master to pupil relationship for many generations, which made me laugh because how many generations can you fit into like 30 years? Right? So he says about the origin of the O9A. During the latter half of the 20th century, a collective of the inheritors of the genuine tradition of Albion, do you see? It's a slight tweak, right? Of the genuine tradition of Albion. That's a lot more general than what Myatt gives you. Decided to unite their efforts and begin to make teachings more public. Thus, the Order of Nine Angles was born, and the sinister tradition was ushered into public knowledge, as well as consequently making the way of the Comlad runing known. Then he talks about a lot of shit on Wicca, saying that the system of hebdomadry, which is another fun word they have for the Sevenfold Way, shows no reliance on these themes, despite, having like their origin story essentially ripped off from Wicca.
Right.
But whatever.
Yep.
It's also, O9A is older than Kabbalah. Okay, guys, y'all ready for some dark gods?
Yes.
Sure.
All right. So he talks about Lovecraft a little bit. Of course, right? And then shits on occult systems that try to systematize Lovecraft, which of course he also is doing. He says that the ONA has a solid theology of dark gods, and then he says that several authors and thinkers are now starting to consider the possibility that humankind came into contact with certain non-terrestrial forces sometime during our early stages of rational awareness. All right, right? Several authors and thinkers, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Authors like maybe James Mason, maybe Semir Osmanagic, maybe Zechariah Stitchin. Yeah, a lot of these guys. So this is what we're talking about.
Also
He's in that
like
world.
Daniken. I mean, this is an old idea.
Yes. Oh, but I learned something I learned from Scithain is that the dark gods are in fact these aliens. That's the unity here, right? So in the O9A mythos, the dark gods, along with other acausal entities, are said to have traveled to Earth at several points in the distant past, giving rise to various myths and legends. primitive magic arose, so some say, out of early man's attempts to emulate the technology of these acausal beings. The interaction between the two species is believed to have advanced our evolution in a considerable manner. Some of these acausal species, known to a depths of the tradition, are said to have copulated with humans, which led to the creation and bearing of half-human offspring.
There we go, alien-human hybrids, classic.
But it's all tied into the Satanism and the witchcraft and all of this. And I guess King Aurthur, why the fuck not? We see such notions abound in ancient literature, from the stories of famed demigods and heroes such as Heracles and Perseus in Greek myth, to the terrible monsters such as Grendel in the Norse saga.
Grundle.
Grundle.
No, Grundle is actually the taint.
Grendel is the taint?
Yes. I was making a joke on Grendel as Grundle.
What is Grundle?
Grundle's the taint. It's a word for...
Who says Grundle?
Plenty of people.
Who? Name one.
I can't name names on this show. Come on.
Convenient. All right. So he says, so throughout all of this time, vampiric elements have always existed, but they had to remain hidden. And I think, Ray, here is where that fancy spelling comes in, because it is like the least Slavic spelling they could come up with. There's a W, there's a PH, exactly. I think the point is to make sure that it doesn't come from there, that it comes from where they're from.
Yes,
of course.
Where they very much like W's and PH's and Y's.
Yeah. They made it look Gaelic-ish, and then said that vampires have always been around since fucking 10,000 years ago. So then he brings in the blood essence, and we get a little more Temple of Blood and stuff like that. There's a section called the Heresy of Witches, where he talks about how the ONA is often misunderstood as like just a collection of made up symbols. And then in the same fucking chapter, he starts making up a bunch of symbols and also adds new gods, just like sticks 3 or 4 more gods on the pantheon. He really is pushing that vampirism is inherent to the ONA. He's very much a lobbyist for vampires, I think, in Britain. So he introduces Moranus, which is going to have some Arthurian connections. Lanus, who is apparently the demon hound of Satan, and Nithra, the Void Mother, who actually I don't think he's added, but and Morgatha, regarded by the Drakon Covenant as Mater Vindex, the mother of Vindex. And what the Drakon Covenant adds as the way to presence Vindex is actually to start with creating Morgatha, which is a human woman who will birth Vindex. So that's their thing. And the fiction in this book is geared towards stories about creating this child, that star child type thing.
Okay, so the ONA skipped that part, or did they?
Yeah.
They wanted Vindex without the mother of Vindex.
Vindex? Well, Myatt's more of a structuralist, I would say, and Fleming is very much more of an action-oriented person.
Yes.
We're gonna make this baby. He also includes... Yes. Yeah. He also includes, quote, the dark god known as Phaon, known among many by his earthly name of Adolf Hitler.
Okay, that's Hitler makes an appearance. Finally.
As Phaon. Yes. Well, the year of Phaon, we know, yeah. All right. So, cool. So there's a lot of rituals in this thing, there's like herbs you can take. Some of them are actually poisonous and deadly, and you should absolutely not take them. A lot of crystals, that kind of thing. And I'm not saying that like the specific ingredients aren't like important to understanding what's going on. I'm saying that like it's not important to understand what's going on. So none of this is important. So I'm not going to go into that much detail like we did maybe in the early Maya episodes. But I want to just hit on a few highlights. According to this tradition, Adolf Hitler was brought into this world as an unconscious adept, not one who had progressed along the difficult path of mastery, but one born with the understanding only brought about by a strict adherence to the path. In essence, Hitler came into this world as a Nexian, one fully open and connected to the ultimate acausal reality, which many throughout the ages have glimpsed and tried to understand, all of which who follow the sinister tradition strive to discover. So Hitler plus King Aurthur gives you Ryan Fleming. historical, well, plus, pedophilia. So he also is really confused about the history of witches, which is weird because he is supposedly a witch. And he writes this section called The Historical Tapestry of Medieval Witchcraft, where he decides he's going to set out to prove that witches are vampires or whatever because of sleep paralysis, something he calls astral predation. That's the astral vampirism you mentioned, and also communion with the undead, the leek, the corpse, right? Now, keep in mind that this word leek, you might know it if you play like Elder Scrolls games or Dungeons and Dragons, especially. You would also know it if you're an Adventure Time fan. And the version of the leek, now leek was never like a walking undead corpse monster until relatively recently, right? Leek, for most of the word's history, just means corpse, like empty body. And later on, like things like Dungeons and Dragons and other fiction brought it into this like new mode of being like a zombie dude, magic powerful zombie guy, right? So that's what Ryan is using. Ryan is using the fun fantasy version of the leak, and the whole point of this book, well, one of the main points of this book is to actually start talking to these Adventure Time characters. And just like in Adventure Time, the leek character has this thing called leek breath, which is this like nasty, stinky breath that he breathes that I guess sucks. That's one of the powers. Okay. Which, again, Adventure Time. I don't know. I'm just saying. So he starts by, he wants to prove that witches are vampires, right? So he starts very excitedly with sleep paralysis and how like science, in scare quotes, can't explain the specific things he wants to know about, like also, I guess, thrashing in sleep and like sleepwalking. And then he says, he actually says that what science doesn't understand is that all these things are the problem of switching between astral bodies and physical bodies. So we get caught in this liminal state. There's like 4 astral zones that you can get in. And the liminal one is the state in which astral vampires, which he'll teach you how to be, predate on others. So the idea is that you're like floating around in the wee hours, finding spirits that are kind of asleep. And often, by the way, you have to fight other spirits, like the ghosts of the people you're trying to predate on in that liminal state of astral sleep or whatever. They are protected by their ancestor spirits, and you're going to have to like kick their ass in order to like send this gross tendril out to suck the blood essence of the person
these are actually,
predating on.
There are similar like folk beliefs about witches and similar like spirits in the Balkans and also like in, I think, northern Italy. Like even this idea about these entities like protecting the whole villages and then fighting other entities that are trying to attack a village somewhere in the like sky or something like this. This is like...
But I think there's a notable difference here in that in those stories, that's from the perspective of the people imagining their village as an unsafe place that needs defense. Yeah. This is from the perspective of a guy trying to attack people and worried that they will be defended by ghosts. One of them comes from anxiety. The other one comes from what? Internet gaming, I guess. So he says this: the relation of such vampiric powers to the dark and chaotic spirits of the wilderness is evident in this natural predatory hierarchy, which humans long ago sought to honor via offerings and treaties made with such entities. These rites later became the basis for the persecution of witches in medieval Europe. And then I immediately pulled up Caliban and the Witch to see if Ryan Fleming was right about this, and Federici would argue that this is not why witches were persecuted in Europe, apparently.
No, you don't say.
It wasn't because they were real vampires. Apparently, it was a problem of building a patriarchal capitalist system. But I don't know. Maybe he didn't read Federici. Maybe not. We'll send it to him in prison next time.
Yeah. Probably not.
Yeah. Well, he could use some more reading material. So he also denies that witch burnings happened, which is a weird move. And then I realized, I guess he's just like a knee-jerk Holocaust denier anyway. So maybe it's just like any Holocaust.
Yeah.
He just denies all of them. He's like, yeah. He's like, most witches weren't burned. While those practicing the black arts were maligned and indeed tried and executed for their crimes, many witches in Europe were simply often imprisoned or forced to pay fines for their arts. These so-called burning times is simply a modern invention. Very Holocaust denial-y, but totally... Like, it's just an extra one.
For no reason.
You know? Because he couldn't fit any, like, really strong anti-Semitic stuff into this, except when he talks about Kabbalah. So I think he had to, like, make up, you know, the impulse. He had to feed the monkey.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he also says, by the way, again, something Federici would disagree with, that witches are flying on broomsticks, and this is an old myth, actually, it's not his, but he takes it seriously, that they covered their broomsticks with like drugs and then rode on them so that they're like, you know, would absorb genitally the drugs and then feel like they're flying. And I remember hearing this shit when I was in like middle school and stuff like that too, but he really holds on to this. Again, Federici would have been helpful here. Yeah, he also likes cannabis. He likes weed, by the way, speaking of drugs. Most of these rituals involve smoking weed. But he also tells people to like...
do, actually.
Sure, a lot of people do.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, all right. So, guys, have either of you played Skyrim?
I have not, no.
No, me neither, no.
Neither of you. Oh, man. So, all right, I'm gonna have to speak for our listener base, who is our Elder Scrolls nerds like me. There is a character in Skyrim called the Dogger or Draugr, and this is taken from mostly Viking mythology, and it's a kind of an undead thing. And in the game, like, they just pour out of everywhere. They're falling out of crypts, and and they like make this really satisfying clattering sound when you kill them. Great. They're super important here as one of the, I think, 3 most important monsters in the Drakon Covenant bestiary. They make up an undead entity commonly referred to as they say, ascended masters. So a lot of the Drakon Covenant's going to be moving the living body towards a dead and immortal body. They offer a way towards immortality that involves suicide, funnily enough. But they actually offer some of this extra stuff, right, that you didn't really get from the O9A. If you remember, like, we were joking that, like, what do you get from the O9A? What is the afterlife? And it's mostly like, I guess we'll remember your deeds as a glorious Aryan soldier. Good luck with that. But Ryan gives you a way to permanently exist among the acausal plane as like an immortal.
All right.
Yeah, which is part of ONA. It's just like Ryan's is a lot more specific. So they also talk about these Derek Duel, these also other vampires, blah blah blah. Somehow Boudica from Civ 5 is implicated in this. She was, of course, the Celtic general that toppled the Roman Empire in Ireland, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Yeah, she's somehow also one of these like Vindex-y types that felt the dark spirits of Albion, blah blah blah. All right, so which by the way also comes from him accepting essentially Roman hysteria about her, right? Like most of the stuff in this book is like things that people's enemies have written about them that he thinks are cool, and so he accepts them as truth. Which is great. So if he accepts everything as true that enemies write about people, then I guess we're going to clear a lot of things up for him today. Yeah. He writes a little bit about, he really likes Fraser's Golden Bough, which is this very romantic, very long text from about a century, more than a century ago now. What is it? He wrote that, was it the 19th or 20th century? I don't remember. But Fraser is this like armchair anthropologist, like the quintessential one, who wrote these fabulous tales of ritual practices all over the world. Fun read, but utter bullshit. Like universally understood by the anthropological community to be garbage that he made up sitting in an easy chair while getting paid shit tons of money from people who loved his stories. So, but again, one of the things that Ryan does is accept this as fact, even though he does point out that some anthropologists are skeptical. He's fair.
Some.
What he means is all anthropologists, and also universally debunked. But that doesn't stop him. But it's interesting though that he keeps trying to legitimate what he says with stuff like this. Like it sounds like when he says these many say, scholars and academics say, some anthropologists, as though he's like up to speed on anything anthropological, which obviously he isn't. But it's important to him that people think that he is somehow. I think because he bases a lot of this on like the lore is essentially like anthropological fiction. So maybe this is why. But he does, my favorite thing in this book that he does, though, is he continually, I mentioned an example of this earlier, but he continually insults and criticizes others for things that he's doing, right? A common thread in the genre.
Of course.
But here's an example. Whilst the modern urban interpretation of witchcraft, remember he is from Leeds, while the modern urban interpretation of witchcraft claims to have derived from centuries-old practices and ways of life, most, if not all, books on the subject of Wicca here are little more than modified forms of the Kabbalistic rituals, which Gerald Gardner and the originators of modern witchcraft brought from the writings of the Golden Dawn. And then, like, fine, okay, but he literally is doing this. Like, not centuries old, multiple millennia old, but he's mostly just mad that Wiccans don't cull people in the end. And that's mostly what he criticizes pretty much everybody for, is that nobody has the same bloodlust that the Drakon Covenant has. They're the true rebels here. Yeah.
Actually, some of this Kabbalah stuff, I think, was talked about in a few threads in Iron March, too.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people were defending Kabbalah, too, weren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
But Fleming says it's the Jewish answer to the world, and so is not the genuine Western tradition.
Well, yeah. That's the spirit of, what's his fucking name? The guy, the combat 18 guy, Charlie Sargent.
Oh, yes.
It's the spirit of Charlie Sargent running throughout the British Satanism stuff. It's, it's a simple ideology. Yes. Racism, right?
Yes.
Yeah. He really hates like Celtic reenactors. He doesn't like this long white robe thing. He thinks that all this stuff is just made up. People don't know what the fuck they're talking about. It's an invention of the 18th century. Blah 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 blah.
Everybody knows that they wore human skin masks.
Well, not even that. Man, like not even that. When you finally get down to what the ritual clothing of the Drakon Covenant is that's been passed down for 10,000 years, it's not white robes, it's black robes.
Yes, of course.
That's what it is. Like these fucking idiots over here.
That's not even creative. I figured the human skin mask would at least
something
skin suit or something would be cooler.
Something. There's some decapitations, not a lot of skin peeling though. Yeah. He has his main problem with like New Age beliefs and stuff is three main issues. One, that although he writes them as like alpha, gamma, what is it, epsilon? He doesn't write them as 1, 2, 3 or ABC. He uses the Greek lettering. So
because of course.
Alpha, money corrupts. Gamma, the authors are all moralists, and then finally that it's made up. They're mostly made up of people who live in cities. Or come from cities. He again is from a suburb of Leeds called Horseforth, which I looked up. It's got some trees, but I wouldn't call it a forest, buddy. So okay, what do you guys think the 09A position on flat Earth is?
Oh, that's a good question.
Because Ryan also drives this point home. A lot of them do that. Like your idea about reality of the cosmos comes from you. That even though they're constantly telling you what it is, they always write something like, here's an example. The sevenfold way of the sinister tradition places the understanding of nature and the cosmos upon the individual and his experiences. But that's just your opinion, man.
They can't be like flat earthers because David Mamet is a huge Star Trek fan and he wants to,
He wouldn't stand for that.
Yeah, that's
true. He wants to travel
Yeah.
around space and has space adventures. And
right.
You can't combine that with a flat earth.
Although I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I haven't done that much reading on flat Earth shit, but I'd imagine that there's a considerable overlap between the like flat Earth sci-fi people.
Well, but how? I mean,
that's the wrong question, Ray. Because how is just what
They will
you
find a
apply
way.
to fucking.
I mean, I
flat
can
Earth
see,
anyway.
It's just like in Jurassic
can-
Park, Ray.
Antarctica isn't
Life
real.
finds a way.
I can see a overlap between flat earthers and like fantasy people, but sci-fi. I mean,
These guys are also fantasy people, though. I mean, find
Star Wars is fantasy, though. It's not even sci-fi. It's just set in space.
Yeah,
it's a fantasy story.
It's science fantasy.
Yeah,
it's science fantasy. But David Mamet is a fan of Star Trek,
which is legit.
So,
yeah. Well, yeah. So in the spirit of letting everybody decide on their own what the universe is, he tells you exactly what the universe is here. The whole system and ontology of magic and magical ritual is thus simplified into a progressive and elegant model, one in which the cosmos is bifurcated into, he writes a causal and a causal. Right? So causal and acausal, but this is how it reads. One in which the cosmos is bifurcated into a causal and acausal universe, with these each possessing energy and matter of their own nature. So this is the first time, and I think this is why Myatt never got that far, is because it doesn't make any fucking sense. So he just says that the acausal universe has its own energy and its own matter and its own nature, but doesn't that mean that it's just differently causal? Because the whole point of causality and acausality is that the causal world has a cause and effect relationship to everything.
Yeah.
Matter and energy, for instance, which apparently now also exists in the acausal world. So they're just like an alternative causal. That's all they are.
It's an upside down world. Yeah, it's not.
That's very stupid.
Yeah.
It is. So nature itself, he says, is a Nexian. That when you walk outside, you're already engaging in that Nexian. You've got these three different forms of magical rituals in the Drakon Covenant. One of them is like scrying, divination, that kind of stuff. There's also offers that you make to dark gods, and there's also seasonal rites, blah, blah, blah. You got two modes for these rituals, the hermetic and the ceremonial, that is alone or with up to three friends minimum. And then also he recommends taking a lot of drugs, like I mentioned. But the most important thing for the O9A in general, but definitely for Drakon Covenant, the Drakon government, that's the future, ladies and gentlemen, is fucking quartz. Quartz. You got to have that quartz. It's all about the crystals. And a quartz tetrahedron.
Quartz? Yeah.
Specifically a quartz tetrahedron. There's other crystals you can use. They all have different, like Morian's important too, but they all have different uses. But the quartz tetrahedron is what gets you to that acausal realm, which builds bridges between you and the world of the undead, et cetera, et cetera. And he really drives home that tetrahedron is the most important thing. It has to be this shape. It has to be the shape. And then finally, when you get down to like the instructions and the rituals and it gets down to the quartz part, he says like, it's cool if it's not that shape. It's fine, whatever. And then, like, later on, he writes stories where it's just, like, a regular quartz. So I don't know, man. Again, like I said, I don't... That's why I don't want to get into many of these ritual details, because they really don't matter, and they just... Whatever. He gives a shout-out to Christos Beast's Sinister Taro in this, with talking about how important the crystals are. I do think he's smoking pot wrong, though. He tends to combine it with self-flagellation.
Which TOB likes a lot too.
Yeah. But I don't know that that's, it's not it's not a usual part of, I would say, like marijuana culture.
No, I didn't see
nor
that
is like
how high
frenetic dancing and screaming and stuff. So I don't know. You're doing it wrong, Ryan. You're doing it wrong. All right, so we talked about... No,
it's the children who are wrong.
Yes. We talked a bit about the Blood Grail already, but it's okay. So that's the direct spiritual lineage from the sinister adepts of Albion, that is these prehistoric peoples, to the modern day novitiate. That's like a combination of novice and initiate. Novitiate.
Oh, that's clever.
Right? He says that the initiation rites are a bestial event. They're a therianthropic process that is like animal to man kind of process. Okay. There's if any listeners are interested, you can find some people that kind of did some of these rites and wrote little journal entries about them. There's something called the Dogger or Draugr Coven, which I think is a New York version of the Drakon Covenant. but maybe that's another episode when we come back around to these guys some seasons away, some
so there
arcs
is
away.
a ONA in New York, huh?
Well, it seems that way. Yeah, it's tied up with black metal, a specific singer in a few defunct black metal bands there. But yeah, save it for later maybe. Prolific bloggers like most ONAers are, most Niners. So one of the most important gods, new dark gods in this Drakon Covenant is Nithra. Nithra is the, quote, inevitable pull towards baselessness and entropy with all matter. All things which bring subtle death are sacred to her, especially poisons and deadly plants. And upon reading this, I remembered having completed this mission in Skyrim, where but the goddess is named Namira in Skyrim, but it's pretty much the same thing. And it even leads you to like a group of people that are like secretly cannibals, and you have to choose whether or not to partake in the flesh to get like the weapon of power and stuff like this. Yeah, it's real strong Drakon Covenant vibes to it. And later on, by the way, one of the acceptable
Skyrim vibes to the Drakon
Covenant. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, this is a very playable lore set he's built here. But so it's again Nithra here, but it's Namira in Skyrim, and then later on he gives you a list of acceptable male and female names that you could be when you take on your role in the Drakon Covenant, and one of them is Namera. Huh? I don't know. Just saying. I'm just saying. This is the younger generation. It was all Star Trek, right? This is a younger guy. His basis of the numinous is different. Yeah. Yeah. Just look here. Here's the actual here. All right. Here is who Namira is in Skyrim. I'm just going to read this to you, and you tell me if this sounds like O9A lore to you. The Daedric prince of sundry dark and shadowy spirits. She is associated with spiders, insects, slugs, and other repulsive creatures which inspire mortals with an instinctive revulsion. She is known as the mistress of decay, the spirit of the Daedra. She is also the patron of Tamriel's cannibals, taking pleasure in the consumption of mortals. Namira's plane of oblivion is known as the scuttling void. You know what? If I didn't tell you that was from a video game, you'd have no idea. Like it reads just like these people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's because their stuff sounds like just shitty fantasy stuff.
Skyrim is not shitty fantasy stuff. You take that back.
Well, okay, this didn't sound like brilliant, really.
It's a game. It's not a book. Come on. Yeah. All right. So, guys, what is the path to Scithain? How do you get there? Huh? You take a right. You take a left. No, you don't do any of those things. Step one, you sit very still for a little while. Just don't do anything. Just sit there. This is called dead stillness. Step two, you stare at something for a little while. You just give it a little stare. That's called the unwavering eye. Step three, you breathe. You practice your breathing. This is called
very important.
leak breath. So you got your dead stillness.
Presumably you don't brush your teeth either if you're going for the leak breath thing. Right?
Well, the stank should come from the acausal plane. You're cheating if you just eat a bunch of garlic, I think. Plus, that will kill you as a vampire, obviously.
Right.
I bet all the vampires are like, that's a myth. That is bigotry. That is just more anti-fascist bigotry that we are exemplifying here at TENE. All right. So to do this like leak breath thing, this breath supposedly is so stanky that it will paralyze your victims. And to get it, you have to see around you a swirling mass of crimson, which is blood essence, which you might remember from the Temple of Blood episode, that adorns your aura as a vampiric predator. It draws from the acausal, marking you as one of them, capital T. So what you got to do now is you get your tendril going. The tendril is super important here. The tendril is part of the fashfic that they write too. The tendril is your main tool. The tendril, He says, some have suggested, quote, again, this is shit he's writing in prison, that the mind molds the subtle astral flesh, creating within it a new and distinct organ, which develops a penetrative nature and a magnetic ability to feed upon targeted living hosts. So that's one theory. Okay. Others have suggested, so this is him on Wednesday, it is perhaps a latent astral organ, which most complex living creatures possess in a rudimentary form, and cite several examples of the sick and dying exhibiting a vampiric tendril. And finally, others, so this is now Friday, have still posited a theory that the tendril is implanted via direct interference of vampiric entities, or that it's a simple organism itself which latches on to the living vampire with the vampiric practitioner and the tendril forming a long-lasting symbiotic relationship. This theory, he notes, holds least weight, however. Most agree, he writes, that the tendril is an elegant ormation of the vampiric mind, which over time forms a distinct pathway of feeding. He offers you three theories of the tendril, and then hints at the most probable one. So the tendril is what you break out during that astral state. So whenever you see those people that are in between, like, their astral state and their physical state, you know, like sleepy, a little bit sleepy, drowsy people, you whip out the tendril and suck all the blood out of their astral bodies. There's a lot about chanting and vibrating, of course. It's ONA, they're always vibrating. There's lucid dreaming. There's the idea of going wild, the wilding path. Again, that's just Myatt's shit, living in the woods and stuff like that. So there's vampiric flight. There's like extra powers you get in this one too. You get to fly. Of course, that doesn't mean really fly. Just like drinking blood almost never means really drinking blood. Just like none of what they do usually ever means anything until they actually, kill someone, and that just makes them fucking murderers. It doesn't make them powerful. So all this stuff is to it's to get the kids, right? Mastering vampiric flight. You first have to understand blood energy. You've got to get your gnosis going. Then you get that astral flight thing going in your dreams, and then you can get that astral feeding thing going, and then once you got all that going, you get that tendril that I talked about, that well theorized soft organ of the astral body, and you just yank that motherfucker until you just get pulled through space, and that's how vampires fly around. So it used to be you turn into a bat and do that shit, but
that sounds like a lot more fun, actually.
Bats are cool. Just grabbing the soft organ of an astral vampire, little weird. Also, extra weird coming from like a dirty pervert like him. Like, I don't know. It does sound very Ryan though.
So it's a flaccid tendril.
Yeah. A lot of this, though, what he writes about getting these powers or the vampire way, a lot of it's like if like Hot Topic at the mall taught meditation. It's just like a lot of like hippy dippy meditation shit mixed in with vampires and witches, and bloods and stuff like that. So again, so the feeding that they do, because I think like the first question any reasonable person probably has in their head when they hear these people say they're vampires are, do you drink blood? The answer is maybe occasionally, but mostly it's all about this astral traveling with the tendril thing and blah, 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 blah. But there are some more funny things where he writes about how stupid it is about what he's writing. He's just constantly seems to be something in him is aware that this is all idiotic, because he writes things like this. Some practitioners of the vampiric tradition of the Covenant have reported that feeding propels them into a staggering and almost psychedelic experience where the astral landscapes of the undead are glimpsed for a brief time. Of these glimpses, little can be written, given the sheer absurdity of what it has been. Which hasn't fucking stopped him yet, But he hits a point where even he's aware. Like, I can't write this fucking shit. It's like, I don't know. Oh, right. Oh my God. All right. So, but the ultimate at vampiric flight, when you really hit that peak, is when you can occupy the body of somebody else, take over their body and become them. So now here we get to a very interesting implication of who Ryan says he is, who A.A. Moraine is. So he writes this. There are times, by the way, when you would take this, you would take the body of an infant, by the way, thus extending your life, et cetera, et cetera. So he writes that the infant would then be raised within the care of the lodge. This is like old practices of the Drakon Covenant from who knows how many thousands of years ago. The infant would be raised within the care of the lodge, who would name the child by his or her former name, Ryan, and in time hope to bring the child to recall its previous life. You were a Nazi pedophile. You were a Nazi pedophile who thought they were a vampire. Huh? I don't want to be, Mom. No, you were. This is you. The continuation of consciousness within a specific physical parameters, but one way in which the traditions and teachings were preserved through harsher times, blah, 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 when the depths of all pursuits were under heavy persecution by the Nazarene Church. So this is a practice that they did in secret under persecution that they've been keeping all this time, of putting Nazi ghosts into babies. So the traditional title you were given is Moraine. So Moraine means like leader, great or dreadful in Celtic, apparently, and is given down to the head of each vampiric lodge. The title is rumored to have originally been the actual name of the first vampiric master to successfully attain transference. The epithet is used nowadays in the same vein as the Roman usage of the title Caesar, Kaiser, whatever, as both name and title, which he cites from the Codex Aristarchus. Now, my thing,
it is rumored. I mean,
it is rumored.
This is a rumor in Leeds going around.
Yes. So yes.
Have you guys heard?
Nazi Ryan is actually an old vampire. All right. So my feeling about this, maybe I'm overreaching a bit, but I feel like there's an implication, given that the name he's taken on is Alexander Aristarchus Moraine, right? Moraine, of course, now we understand being the title given to the head of the lodge. Aristarchus sharing this name with the Codex, that is the foundational text of all of this. Alexander, I guess, being Slavros. I'm kidding. No, I don't know. Like conqueror or some shit. So I feel like he's implying that he is somehow potentially the inheritor of that ghost, of that original ghost. Because again, like he's the one that has all the information.
Well, yeah. Who else would it be?
Tradition. I think, yeah. So I think the implication is that Ryan is actually just the current body of the ancient Moraine of the original Drakon Covenant or whatever, hiding from the Nazarenes and shit like that. So there you go. That's who he is. He's not just a dirty pervert from Leeds. He's a
10,000-year-old vampire.
10,000-year-old vampire. What's so hard to fucking believe about that, Judge? Your Honor. So, they did say he was boastful, right? They didn't say what he boasted. It certainly could have been that I'm the 10,000-year-old head of a vampiric lodge from the Hebrides, where the cute pony comes from. All right. There's a lot after this about different stuff, like the equipment you need. I'm going to skip through most of that. A lot of mirrors, quartz, you know what it is. All right. So I know that I promised y'all werewolves. We're going to get to it. You're going to be disappointed, just letting you know. I'm just going to wrap this up with just a little potpourri. A little lich potpourri. Leech? How do you say that? Leek? I don't know. All right. So I mentioned suicide giving you immortality. This is something that witches can do to open up what's called the Nithra Gate on death. And they can go through a really complicated rite that involves like teamwork and I believe human sacrifice, or you can just kill yourself in a cemetery with some camping equipment, and that will also get you there.
Nice.
But I personally recommend to all Nazi Satanists to do the latter and not the former. So interestingly, Ryan points to the I believe you pronounce it Bootes, the constellation. It's this very large, kind of long arcing constellation in the sky. Arcing is probably the wrong word, but whatever. If you know it, you know it. Behind Bootes is this void, like far behind, where there's this like empty space in the universe where there are no galaxies whatsoever. It's crazy and it's huge and it grows, right? So the Bootes is important to the Drakon Covenant, but it's not clear to me that they know about the void. Like he talks a bit about how there's like to get to the Void Mother, right? So surely he knows, yeah? But they never say it. So I don't know if they just got really lucky with this one or not. But to become one with the Void Mother, to get through acausal space, you kill yourself in the situation. You go to what's called the Bortis Nexion. There's Nexians, by the way, all throughout space. There's all these, already out there, made by dark gods, aliens, whatever. So you just go there, and the witch can just do this ritual suicide while Botis is in the night sky, and then he says it's in August in the northern hemisphere, so he gives you your suicide window there too, which is really convenient. But if you don't want to do that, if you want to go through all of the steps, so here they are really quickly. He's going to run them down. You got to perform the vampiric rite of initiation, master the basics of all this meditative practice, practice feeding with the vampiric tendril, now suddenly spelled Wamphyric.
The editor didn't catch that, you mean?
Yes, I guess. Or they don't care. You have to achieve at least one successful astral projection, long enough to feed. You need to dedicate a ritual area. You need to perform path workings to the Tree of Weird. I think it means play the star game, maybe. You need to practice messages and visions from scrying with the Black Mirror. You need to select an individual for culling and then do a vampiric leeching curse on them. You need to be able to answer a bunch of questions about the sinister tradition, like planetary incense blends, locales pertinent tradition, and so on. I'm interested in asking about your planetary incense blends. Undertaking an insight roll for 6 months. He says that the O9A requires only 3 months, but we require 6 months. Learning and practicing 3 chants of the dark gods, successfully training for and achieving a demanding physical goal. Basically, he just completely rips off that whole hiking forever thing that the O9A does. Undertaking the secret task associated with the initiate stage, given in secret by the O9A as a secret rite, or rather by the Drakon Covenant, rather, which can be obtained upon request. Your final secret challenge you have to do. So all of those steps, or kill yourself.
Okay.
Also, if you do decide not to kill yourself, Nazis, these are the names you have to rename yourself. So you can choose if you're a man from Alwind, Cardwin, Myrin, Cameron, Halrun, Adair, Althol, Brannan, Kaedman, and Kaelen. So if you don't kill yourself, you're going to have to be called one of those things.
That's not a particularly long list. They're going to start getting confused with one another.
Totally. There's only like 10 of them, but it tells you there's not many people in the Drakon Covenant, so you're never going to... There's also female names, so that gives you 20 possibilities.
He basically give us the list of the members, no?
Yeah, plus Namira from Skyrim. If one of these members, though, does break with the Covenant, and you decide to have you can have like this trial. So you bring you have a judge, you've got all these things, and if you decide that death should be the punishment, how do you kill your Coven members? Because this book advocates like beheading people. You know what I mean? Like it's written by a multiple rapist. You'd imagine something pretty brutal for traitors. You know, like traitors are the worst. So what do? You do what's called the death rite. And the idea is that you get your crystals and pentagrams and robes and your friends together, and then you do a little ceremony that will drain the power and blood essence from these people, which then, quote, eventually results in their death.
What?
So you in the ritual you yell about how like they're dead and you killed them for the Night Mother and shit like that, and you use all the fun witch stuff, but that's their death sentence. You are safer joining this covenant and then turning them all into the feds than you are just like living near them, you know? Like, yeah, they're fine with traitors.
That's fucking boring.
Fucking Sergeant Man had a guy get stabbed in the back. Like this is where we are. All right. I mean, I'm not complaining. I just wish that they would apply the same standards to their members as they do to the rest of us. Like, if this was the worst thing that they did, if it was like the death rite that will eventually result in our death because we're missing our blood essence.
Mate, you're dead to me.
Cool.
You're dead to me, mate.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, that's exactly it. All right. So let's wrap this up here. he does add a fun section on some of the myths of the Hebrides, which maybe I'll just skim through right now because they're a little funny. Like one of them is that like on these islands, like herbivorous animals like deer have been observed to kill and eat small creatures. There are carnivorous bramble bushes that like eat animals, all this kind of stuff. They also he also starts talking about how Neanderthals have some kind of lineage here as well. There is some like archaeological basis for this, but since we don't know very much at all about Neanderthal spirituality, which is still a subject of contention, he goes ahead and just fills in the gaps for us and says that basically the Drakon Covenant, not only does it represent these 10,000-year-old human settlers, it is also carrying at least part of the tradition from Neanderthals from 50,000 years ago. So if just in case it wasn't old enough for you, the reason why he picks Neanderthals is because that's when the sinister oral tradition apparently says, I think he's also just making this shit up, that this is when obviously it's made up. Yes. I'm not sure if it's he's doing it or if he got it from somewhere else. That the dark gods came to Earth in that time. And he says that like cave paintings in 50,000 BCE have some like aliens and stuff and some blah, blah, blah. All right. So there you go. That's mostly it. He kind of closes off the main part of the book with kind of a warning. He says, any apparent success Magian occultists may gain from the flawed and essentially Nazarene magical system is simply down to self-delusion on the part of the practitioner, with often little or no definite results to show for such workings. He writes about Magians after telling us that their death sentence is like a chant you do on a pentagram that will eventually take your blood essence away. But no, we're not like these Kabbalists, But he elaborates on the Stargate, which was one of my favorite films as a kid. So he says that these stars, we kind of covered them in one of the Maya episodes, that each of the dark gods also has like a causal realm and that these are planets, but for them they call them all like stars sometimes. And other times they call all the stars planets and the moons
basic
planets.
Astronomy.
It's one of these things, yeah. So he writes that, and just the only interesting thing here is that like Saturn is really important here. So according to, he says, another oral tradition, there exists a particular Nexian located near the planet Saturn. So any astronomy buffs out there might want to take a look next time.
And Saturn has a bunch of moons. It could just be on one of those, but maybe he doesn't know that, or
could be. I don't know, man. It's acausal. Fuck knows. Some say that this is the prison or a sealed gateway, right? Like in Superman. One which has kept the dark gods from entering our causal realm again. This gateway was sealed by the Elder Gods, a race of advanced entities that had battled them aeons ago after the dark gods had arrived amongst primitive man and accelerated our evolution, giving us the ability to think and perform rites of magic, among other gifts. According to this oral tradition, the elder gods who were hostile to the agency of the dark gods to give humankind their gifts were from the Sirius star system. So you've got Sirius here, you've got Saturn there, these are very important, and he says to this day, astronomers, surely astronomers, note anomalies and UFOs around Saturn, perhaps more than any other planet in our solar system.
Is that so?
So, it's totally so. I don't know if you guys are following the latest astronomy news about all the UFOs around Saturn, but I guess if UFO means unidentified flying objects, sure, there's like a fucking shit ton of moons there, but that's not really what the implication is. So in the end, you get like a little short story called The Moors 2, which Moors 1 is in the Codex, where basically it's just about, in short, this guy named Victor Moraine, who's a scientist that nobody believes, who says he sees tendrils like coming off of like the sun or whatever, and he makes a device. He makes a device which is first of all, he talks to them with like mold, which I actually kind of like, with like jars of mold. He figures out how to communicate to these dark gods, and then makes like this metal ring with like a crystal inside of it to like travel to their Nexian or whatever. And in the end, these people find his body after he like did this ritual suicide and traveled on or whatever. They find his body, and on that occasion they decide to create Morgana, who is going to give birth to Vindex. That's the story. That's it. I don't know. It's It's whatever. It's the only one he's got in the book that's like a fiction, though. The funniest part, though, is that the book has a moment where it's again, this is like history of the Drakon Covenant. This is talking about a guy named Moraine, who is, again, we know means leader of these covenants. There's a really funny part, though, where it introduces Victor Moraine and it says 60 years earlier, which really made me laugh. That was definitely the funniest part. Because again, just to remind listeners, this whole religion is like what, 3-4 years old, something like that, 5 maybe.
No, it's older. If it's older than ONAs, then it's.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I forgot. It's 10,000 years old. Yeah.
Come on, Fritz.
Yeah. And then I wanted to give you the lycanthropy last. Save the best for last. The werewolves. All right. Again, you're going to be disappointed. Don't get your hopes up too high. So. I maybe mentioned that, maybe I didn't, but Ryan also wants like a monastic community, very much in the sense of like Myatt, monastic rural living. This is one of the things he's arguing for. So the lycanthropy aspect, it doesn't have a strong, like you're not a vampire or a werewolf. You can be both. It depends on the day. And it's like, how like right-wingers think that they're critiquing trans people by saying like, oh, I guess I can be like a boy today and a girl tomorrow if I want, right?
He actually says he does that on Iron March and does the typical I identify as an attack helicopter. He literally says that on Iron March. It's like the most played out fucking thing prick. Too. Like,
well, also this is what he does. I mean, he's telling you that you can be a vampire one day and a werewolf the next. Why the fuck not? You can be a lich or a draugr or a whatever. He's like, fuck him. So So he says that this is how you become a werewolf. Find a place in a wooded area where you will not be disturbed. It is important to have fasted for 3 days beforehand, eating only uncooked meat products when food is necessary, and on each night to have performed the lycanthropic meditation, which is a meditation where I think you summon Lanus or something like this, whatever. Clothed in a black robe, which is the real thing, not these white robes. It's a black, authentic 10,000-year-old robe, and adorned in musk oil, so you're all musky. You sit and meditate on the breath for a few minutes, on that leek breath. You're getting stanky and musty here. Next, begin a counterclockwise dance or pattern, circling slowly inward. Any dance will do. I'm going to choose the Super Bowl shuffle, whilst vibrating the word Satanas. When you are spent, you sit and say the following. Satan, dark master of the forest, lord of awe and derision, come forth from the shadow of the woods and bring your wild hunt. Lanus, O hound of Satan, O steward of the eternal forest, you come forth from the shadow of the wood and anoint me as one of your kin. And may the wolf possess me. May I be reborn as a beast of Satan. Begin your dance again. Outward this time. Focus on transforming your body into that of a wolf. As you continue your dance, feel your skin coated in black fur. Your hand elongate into talons. Your jaw snap forth and be filled with sharp teeth. Vibrate the name Lanus as you do. Commune now with the Dark Master, the ancient keeper of the forests. Attendant to him are werewolves who run with him as hunting dogs of mundane flesh. Feel now the pleasure of the werewolf. Go out into the night and taste the pleasures of the will. If a correct state of mind is reached and bloodlust is not overpowering the practitioner, astral travel should be attempted taking the form of the werewolf. Let's take this shit on the road. That's it.
Yeah,
that's what you get. That's the much awaited addition of lycanthropy, of werewolves to the O9A corpus. You just picture yourself as like a furry. Like, you don't even become a furry. Like, furries are way more hardcore than this. These guys just sit there and imagine that they're furries. And
it does require the eating raw meat thing for...
Okay, that is hardcore. That is pretty hardcore, yeah. They probably don't do that, though.
He's definitely not done that.
No, he's
that nasty-ass, like, British meat that's fucking...
Yeah, Spam? Yeah.
No, like, the fucking mad cow and shit.
Oh, great. Yeah. I guess, does cured meat... doesn't count as raw meat, right?
No,
it's not cooked.
No.
Okay. So no cheating, werewolves. No cheating.
Yeah, eat some raw chicken, please. A lot of it.
Yes, yeah. Take these like various banes he suggests, and enjoy your travels to boths. Was that threatening? Did we just threaten? I don't think so. I think suggesting that
I'm
Nazi
okay with
Satanists just kill themselves. They want it, right? I mean, they're saying it's a good thing. So if we say it's a good thing,
why are you asking if it was threatening?
I don't know. I don't want to be that guy. You know, like I don't want to be like, oh, go kill yourself. But like they're saying like, oh, go kill yourself.
Yeah.
So I think it's fine.
Yeah. I think...
So yeah, do that, Ryan, as soon as possible. All right, guys.
You will decide when editing if it's okay.
No, it's staying in. I know in advance. I'll be tired at this point. So let's. All right, guys. So what did you think? That's another one of our 09A texts checked off.
Yes.
How'd it hold up?
I mean, it's quite typical, no, in its attitude, like in the kind of person that he is.
Yes.
It's as we already mentioned, it's like the whole point is saying how you are special and better than the others, and in a very obvious way. I mean,
Right.
And
which in this case is older.
yeah.
Yeah. So between 4,000 and 45,000 years older.
Yeah, so you factor in the Neanderthals.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. Also, I just remembered that werewolves are a big part of Skyrim as well. I'm thinking this is very Skyrim. I think he just made a religious text out of Skyrim. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, well, all right. Those are your Nazis for today.
That is
Ryan Fleming.
Nazi.
National Action Werewolf. National Action Werewolf. National Werewolf Action. All right.
National Werewolf Action.
Sounds like a fucking great band.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, guys, until next time.
We're gonna finish this.
Yeah, we're coming to the end of the arc now.
Arc.
That's right. We're gonna unlock an episode. It's not important.
Yeah.
Not important to the listener because the listeners here are all premium listeners, so they're gonna be pissed by this news. Actually, we're gonna steal one of your episodes and give them to the people.
Yeah. And then we're gonna wrap
I'm no
up the
longer
whole-
special.
Then we're gonna wrap it up. Yeah. All right, guys. So see you in a week. Then.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.